So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Black Clover? So let's start the series. At the Dark Red Lion base, there was a fair-haired man and a vermilion-shaded haired lady who were obliterating everything around them as they fought. The lady's name is Leona Vermillion, an honorable from the Clover realm. The man she was fighting with is Naruto Uzumaki, a lovely who has ascended to the position of Enchantment Knight Bad Habit Skipper through his assurance and strong sorcery. As the battle heightened, Leona utilized her fire-based enchantment and Naruto avoiding with his deception sorcery blended in with support wizardry. The vermilion-haired lady sent a blast of punches canvassed in damnation after the blondie man, however he obstructed them with his katana, which he had supported with his wizardry to endure her flares. The two had impacted, making a blast that kicked up dust all over. Not long later, Leona was seeking after the blondie man, her clenched hand raised to strike. When she did, her punch went directly through him, uncovering he was a deception. Unexpectedly, she felt a sharp agony behind her head and murkiness took her. Naruto peered down on Leona's oblivious body and shook his head. He would never comprehend her. She generally came here to provoke him to a duel that she realized she was unable to win. Each time they battled, he generally dominated the competition, yet he guessed the furious, solid-headed lady couldn't take the way that there was somebody she was unable to beat. Naruto checked out him at the obliteration they had caused and moaned. The commander wouldn't be cheerful about this. The other crew individuals who were watching the fight, which was a week-by-week event at this point, could see the reason why Naruto was the bad habit chief, regardless of whether he was certainly not a respectable. The blondie was regarded by his crew and the majority of individuals of the Clover realm for his solidarity and conviction. While there were a few snooty aristocrats who actually detested him, the blondie didn't allow that to get to him. Nonetheless, he stayed on high alert on the off chance that they had a go at something dumb. The blonde bad habit skipper bowed down and got the lady in a marriage convey, something he realized she would like if she was cognizant, and conveyed her to the commander's office, the chief who was additionally her sibling. En route to the skipper's office, Naruto really wanted to think back about how he got into this position. He colored a legend in his previous existence, just to awaken as a child in a halfway house with no chakra, yet with sorcery. When he was 13 years of age, he acquired a 4-leaf grimoire with the capacity to utilize deception wizardry that could trick the 5 detects. About a year after he was enlisted to join the Ruby Lions, he was delegated as the Bad Habit Commander by Fugolian Vermillion. He tried sincerely and traveled through the positions, becoming Bad Habit Chief by the age of 20. Right now, Leona dropped by and expressed that he looked excessively frail to be her sibling's Bad Habit Skipper, and provoked him to a coordinate with all the crew individuals watching. The match was extraordinary, however she at last lost the duel, causing her a deep sense of disgrace, and her siblings' entertainment. From that day forward, she has been coming to their base to challenge him consistently and losing everything. Fugolian let him know that his sister had put herself through serious preparation prior to testing him, yet each time he crushed her quicker and quicker, causing her to become baffled as she suspected he was keeping down his solidarity and just utilizing sufficient ability to beat her scarcely. Naruto looked down at the obstinate lady and he really wanted to moan in disappointment. She wasn't terrible looking, she had huge firm bosoms, a full ass, and she had female bends. The main issue was she resembled an untamed lioness. She would debilitate any man who got excessively near her, which was the explanation she was as yet single at the age of 27. Most aristocrats wedded early, yet there weren't any men able to move toward this rough lady, not to mention propose to her. His chief once in a while jokes that he ought to make her his significant other. However, he disregards him when he says that since he can't envision what being hitched to Leona Vermillion would be like, she would without a doubt move him consistently to a duel. And there is additionally the respectable and worker thing, so he doesn't actually engage the thought. Skipper's office. Naruto entered the workplace without thumping and put the still oblivious Leona on the sofa by the side of the workplace. Skipper Fugolian didn't look into. He was utilized to his sister's and Bad Habit Commander's tricks. The blondie dropped himself into the seat before the commander's work area as he was going over some desk work. Naruto hung tight for his skipper to query, however he continued onward over more desk work. "Skipper, I believe I will take a mission," the blondie expressed as he assumed if he took a long mission, he would have the option to move away from Vermillion for basically half a month. Goodness, you're attempting to take off from your sweetheart, he prodded happily. At last, he looked into, she will be grief-stricken when she awakens and you're away for 7 days without telling her anything. Murmur, Commander, the blondie man said, she isn't my sweetheart, she would prefer to set me ablaze than date me, and that isn't in any event, referencing she is a respectable and I'm a laborer. The blondie man answered as he kept having their discussion with his skipper, yet he continued to prod him about it. I think you are underrating her, Vermillion said as he looked at his sister. She won't allow anybody to conclude who she can or can't be with. That is essential for the explanation she is single at this point. Assuming that you say as much, Naruto answered absent-mindedly as he found a mission on his chief's work area about shielding the Clover Realm borders from an assault by the Jewel Realm that ought to remove him for quite a long time, on the off chance that not months, and it appeared to be a sufficiently straightforward mission. After 5 months Wizard Lord's office, Naruto murmured to himself the straightforward mission ended up being a full mystery intrusion set up by the Precious Stone Realm as they were trying the protections of the Clover Realm. The blondie figured out how to without any assistance repulse the attacking powers by catching their most grounded contenders in strong deceptions, making them see their partnership as their foes, while he was shrouded in a deception of imperceptibility. He went after the Precious Stone Realm's troopers who were in a frenzy because of their most grounded warriors going after them. He butchered great many individuals that day, making the Precious Stone Realm retreat. He later figured out that they had begun calling him the Devil in the Jewel Realm, in the Clover Realm. Nonetheless, they called him the Satanic Edge of Deception. The two names fit, taking into account everything. This moment, he was remaining before the 28th wizard ruler Julius Nabocrono, who was praising him on nicely done. However, the blonde simply needed to return home and rest. He tuned the majority of what the wizard lord expressed out until he heard him say they would hold a meal in his honor. The blondie moaned, realizing there was nothing he could say or do to prevent the wizard lord from tossing the meal. He bowed marginally and pardoned himself prior to getting back to the Red Lion base. Red Lion's base. Sufficiently entertaining, Vermillion was the first to welcome him with her clenched hand, which he evaded by making a deception of himself and getting away to the chief's office. He heard a blast and a shout of wrath, making him laugh as Vermillion should have at last obliterated his deception, as he was at last before his commander. The blondie recapped momentarily what had unfolded before Vermillion came flying in, reviling the blonde male who sneered back at her. Before she could do anything, her sibling halted her as she tuned in on what the blondie had done during the mission. At the point when Naruto was finished, his skipper advised him to get some rest. Before the blondie left, he illuminated his commander that the wizard lord would hold a meal in his honor. Vermillion gestured and waved the blondie off prior to conversing with his sister in private. The blondie left to go to his confidential room and dropped down onto his bed, rest taking him. Vermillion's office. Vermillion was viewing at his sister in entertainment as he probably was aware she had a few affections for his more youthful blonde bad habit skipper regardless of whether she recognized it herself. Their folks even began to design a wedding for the vermilion-haired lady much to her disturbance. So when is the wedding? Our folks are eager to at long last have some grandkids, Vermillion said happily, getting a fireball tossed at him. However, he figured out how to evade it by shifting his head aside. Will you shut up about that? It's your issue. Our folks are forcing me to get hitched, the brunette lady answered. Their folks maintained that her should bring the more youthful blonde home. They couldn't care less on the off chance that he is definitely not an honorable. To them, any individual who can tame their wild girl can have her. Also, they need grandkids to seriously ruin. Indeed, it is great that you don't care deeply about the blonde, since I'm certain there will be lots of women at the feast who will attempt to attach him to their families, the skipper of the Dark Red Lion expressed. Knowing the main explanation, the blondie didn't have a group of concubines of honorable women was on the grounds that he was conceived a worker, yet after his demonstration of otherworldly power, the vast majority of the royals would need to tie him into their families, since enchantment power will in general be passed down from guardians to kids. Him and his kin were genuine models. Vermillion stayed quiet prior to frowning and leaving her sibling's office, making him laugh at her response. He looked as her withdrawing figure vanished from view, shaking his head. She was a strong wizardry knight, however she was deficient in different regions. for example, being a lady. The commander of the Dark Red Lions trusted that she and the blondie would get together, while he was more youthful than her. It wasn't quite a bit of an issue since he realized the blondie wouldn't fret dating more seasoned ladies. He had dated a couple of more seasoned ladies in bars he visited occasionally to vent. The blondie was an incredible sick person and skirt chaser, however he was serious areas of strength for a decent man. His sister was an out-of-control kid at an early stage in life, and no man had at any point figured out how to get her attention until the blonde, whom she never could win a battle against. Murmuring the commander take a gander at his work area that was loaded up with solicitations to meet the blonde from the honorable houses. They believed that he should court their girls or female family members. He trusts his sister will begin smarten up in light of the fact that the blondie will be encircled by a ton of ladies very soon. The evening of the feast respecting Naruto's triumph over the Jewel Realm, Naruto was wearing imperial clothing by the wizard ruler's very own specialists at the request for the wizard lord himself. The blondie was donning white and blue clothing with a cape, much to the blonde's disturbance. He looked himself over in a mirror and needed to concede he looked great. The blondie addressed Julius and he expressed that there were a ton of respectable families after his seed to get their family's future. The blondie answered with a passing look. However, Julius advised him that while he was conceived a laborer, he had probably the most remarkable enchanted energy on the planet. That by itself made him exceptionally significant. Presently, he is a conflict legend who crushed a whole armed force without help from anyone else. He wouldn't believe in the event that any aristocrats would pay him to impregnate their female family members. The blonde illusionist didn't have the foggiest idea what to tell any of that, however just murmured and went into the huge room where the feast was being held, joined by Julius who had declared their appearance. The night was a haze for the blonde. He conversed with his chief momentarily before some aristocrat endeavored to match up their female family members with him, which he respectfully declined. Julius gave the blonde a decoration as the other mysterious knights, aristocrats, and every other person cheered. The blondie ended up at the bar and requested areas of strength for A. As the night went on, he drank increasingly more until he awakened the following day in bed with a parting cerebral pain. The following day. The blondie got up the following morning with a parting cerebral pain. The blondie attempted to get up yet acknowledged he couldn't on the grounds that there was a load on his chest. He peered down and saw the dozing face of Marileona Vermillion. Sadly, she was exposed. The blonde then, at that point, turned out to be more conscious and understood his morning wood was in something sweltering, wet, and tight. As he moved, Marileona groaned on top of him. From the bloodstains on the sheets, it seemed he had taken her virginity. The blondie started to overreact before he attempted to recall what had happened the prior night. "Stop not too far off, you swindler," shouted a dull-haired man with two horns on his head, stamping him as a demon have with flares orbiting him. "You will not pull off this, you jerk. We will kill you for playing with woman Vanika's heart," yelled a dainty, white-haired man with four horns on his head and a dark smoke encompassing his body. The two Shadow Realm entertainers were close behind a light-haired man who was the admirer of Vanika Zogrades. However, they found him taking a few data from her office and cautioned everybody present. The short-lived blonde pivot and lift his hand and an impact of ice consumed the two men, freezing them strong. "I got messy and found. Murmur while I better tell Nacht Faust I got found out," Naruto said, discouraged. However, the data he went over was worth the effort. He ran over data on the missing Zogrades kin, Lucius Zogrades, who was the host of Astaroth, the time-fallen angel. He truly thought that Satan is some way or another associated with the wizard lord, Julius Navachrono. He would have rather not trusted it. However, in this world, the wizard ruler is the main other being with time enchantment. The blondie murmured as he prepared to get together with Nacht. The shadow enchantment client could have done without him much on the grounds that the blondie had utilized his deception sorcery to fool him into calling a few villains for him to tie to himself. The twin fiend sisters Nahama and Lilith, who utilized fire and ice enchantment, had been crushed and limited by him. He had caused them to submit to him in a manner even Nacht was shocked, particularly since they were probably the most noteworthy positioning villains. The blondie had dominated the sisters' sorcery past even how they could do their wizardry. He even joined his sorcery and theirs to make a power they said would empower him to confront any demon and win. The blondie went over the data he found in his mind. He found that Lucius Zogrades had soul enchantment and he had been brought into the world with two spirits. He thought the senior Zograti's steering was involving Julius as a cover while Lucius concealed profound inside him. The blondie trusted that wasn't true, yet his stomach was letting him know it was. The blonde then, at that point, just centered around getting to Nacht. Nacht's secret base, Shade Kingdom. Nacht's base was in an old honorable family house that had been obliterated by the Zograti's sidelings when they assumed control over the realm. Naruto let him know all that he had found, however Nacht stayed unconvinced. He was unable to accept the wizard ruler could be the missing Zograti's veering. The Shadow Mage needed to concede that all that the blondie shared with him checked out, yet that would mean the Clover realm was in genuine difficulty, and he didn't have any idea how he could deflect it. He then centered around the blonde. He did truly like him since he caused him to call evil presences for him, yet he wound up restricting them to the place where they were his devoted pets. He additionally could have done without how the blondie approached keeping an eye on the Shade Realm, essentially luring Vanica Zograti's and making her his bitch until Satan inside her wound up submitting to him. The blondie appeared to be a characteristic at restricting and enslaving demons. It would make sense if Vanica Zograti's turned on her kin on the blondie's requests. It just showed the amount he had unlimited authority over her. Similar to this moment, the elegant fallen angel Lilith was rubbing his feet while Nahama needed his shoulders. The control he has over the devils he has even reflects in their association. He remains generally something similar, simply growing 9 horns on his head like a crown and acquiring 2 gloves on his hands. The blondie was as of now quite possibly of the most impressive being on the planet. He was certain they could undoubtedly kill off the Zograti's and their allies, however ceased from doing so in light of the fact that that would start a conflict with the Shade Realm, and the other encompassing realms could participate. Indeed, since your cover is compromised, you should get back to the Clover Realm, the Shadow Mage said with a wide smile, realizing the blondie was taking off from a specific vermilion-haired lady who had too little treat for him back home. The blondie looked prepared to contend, yet drooped his shoulders when he understood Nacht had been correct. He could make Vanica keep her mouth shut, yet the news probably contacted her kin at this point. He was blissful he killed those brown noses that uncovered him since he realized except if you were extremely strong, you were unable to get away from his ice wizardry, indeed, his ice enchantment, since he made his demons give him all that they had: body, brain, soul, and sorcery. They let him know that assuming he had youngsters, they could acquire his deceptions, ice, fire, a blend of their wizardry, or something totally different. The blondie thought about the ruby lions and moaned. He got the time had come to recognize the cold hard reality. He trusted his skipper and his insane sister didn't kill him. He left the base without a word and got back to the Clover Realm. Clover Realm, Wizard Ruler's Office. Naruto revealed his discoveries to Julius, while remaining quiet about his doubts. As he talked, he attempted to see as any awkward insights regarding the Wizard Lord, however he proved unable. In the wake of completing his report, Julius informed Naruto about a psychological militant gathering called the Eye of the 12 p.m. Sun that had gone after the Clover Realm. Clearly, their base had been found, and a portion of the other mysterious knights were entrusted with disposing of them. He let him know Vermillion was the impermanent commander of the Dark Red Lions since her sibling was at. They terminated their spells at him, one painted a Goliath, one with snow, and the last with light. The blonde they went after was a deception, however, as they found when he pummeled the paint sorcery client to the ground, oblivious, and kicked the snow wizardry client into the wall. The last mythical person saw what was happening, went after with fire and light, making the blondie avoid prior to going on the assault, yet finding the mythical people gone, he glanced around to ensure they were gone prior to strolling over to Vermillion, who was scarcely cognizant. As he drew nearer to her, 2 mages with the Dark Bull's image showed up close by, making him raise an eyebrow. As he drew closer, they strained. Murmur, there's no requirement for that now. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, the bad habit commander of the Red Lions. The blondie reported himself to them, causing them to unwind somewhat. He strolled past them towards Vermillion, who saw him throw a frail jab, which he got and grinned as he understood she was a similar vicious lady. She fell oblivious and he got her in wedding style, requesting the 2 Dark Bull individuals to follow him. He asked their names. They were Asta and Zora. As they were withdrawing, Zora educated him regarding where they were refocusing. The blondie saw Noelle was stunned to see him with Vermillion in his arms and there were other Imperial Knights around them. He rested Marioliona up against a tree while utilizing Ilia's corner on her and the other harmed individuals to assist them with mending. After Marioliona was completely mended, she stayed oblivious, stressing the blonde. Noelle got a misery call from his crew, so he coordinated an escort to move every one of the Imperial Knights back to the capital, House Vermillion. Noelle demanded the blonde bad habit chief bring Marioliona back home, yet wouldn't intricate why. In any case, he could see he had a nearly entertained appearance all over. As they strolled inside the house, the Vermillion house, he was guided inside by workers of the house. He was met by Merliona's folks and younger sibling Leopold, who were stunned to see him, as her mom embraced two twin young ladies. Every young lady appeared to associate with 4 years of age. They had similar vermilion-shaded hair and blue eyes. The main contrast between them was the length of their hair, as the two of them wore a similar garments. The two young ladies probably saw Marioliona in his arms as they went after her. The two twins yelled "Mom!" simultaneously, frightening Naruto. "Mama!" Marioliona, who might be bold and inept enough to get her pregnant, the blondie asked stupidly as he put down the oblivious lady on her family's costly couch. The girls of Marioliona were close by, attempting to awaken her, however without any result. This made them both cry, until their grandma showed up to comfort them, guaranteeing them that their mom was essentially depleted and would awaken soon. She then embraced them both. "So who was sufficiently imbecilic to knock her up?" the blondie asked his skipper's dad in a delicate voice. The dad possibly viewed at the blonde as though he were an imbecile prior to replying, "They are yours." "I didn't exactly get what you said," the blondie answered noisily as he snickered. "I assumed I heard you say that I am the twins' dad." The blonde, not accepting what he had heard, gazed at his companion's dad in dismay. Leopold was scowling at the blonde the entire time. The blondie investigated the twins and acknowledged they had his eyes and a similar facial construction as him. The twins probably heard the blonde's explosion since they turned their consideration towards him prior to inquiring, "Would you say you are our daddy?" The deception mage, hearing the twin young ladies who were an ideal combination of Marioliona and himself call him daddy, made the blondie freeze up in shock before his eyes folded once again into his head and he blacked out on the spot. Naruto was sitting in a rocker with two 4-year-old young ladies hanging all over him, conversing with him as though he had been in their lives all along. In the meantime, the fair himself was still in shock. The young ladies' grandparents and Leopold were taking a gander at him with dull entertainment. Evidently, they were irate with him for letting Marioliona be while getting her pregnant. The young ladies' names are Morifumi and Mitsumari Vermillion. The short-haired young lady is Morifumi, and the long-haired young lady is Mitsumari. Morifumi said, "Daddy, come play with us," while she sat on his shoulder. "No, kindly recount your undertakings," Mitsumari demanded from his dad's lap. Each time the twins called him daddy, the blondie would jump from a combination of disgrace, responsibility, and shock. He was stunned that he had gotten the lady pregnant, yet felt disgrace and culpability for abandoning her to go through it. The twins' grandma said, "Children, let your dad have an opportunity to gather his considerations," she added. "I will go to the kitchen and get you something sweet." The twins leaped off the blonde with astounding finesse for their age. However, he speculated with who the mother was. That should have been normal. He sent the woman of the house a thankful look, yet she stuck her nose up and turned her head as she guided the twins away. The Deception Wizardry Knight remained close to Ruler Vermillion and neither talked until Naruto inquired, "So how is Skipper Fugolian?" "I heard he was in a state of unconsciousness in the wake of getting gone after by a gathering called the Eye of the 12 p.m. Sun." The top of the Vermillion house didn't answer right away, causing the blonde to feel like he had said something he shouldn't have. "Fugolian is as yet oblivious, however he is solid. He will beat this and return more grounded," he expressed. "Better believe it, my sibling wouldn't let this hold him down." Leopold repeated his dad's proclamation. "I don't question it, the chief has forever been a strong and solid-willed individual," Naruto said cheerfully as he recollected the times he battled close by the torpid commander. "I think it is ideal assuming that I go," the blondie said. Naturally despised by Marioliona's folks and sibling, he likewise felt a huge supernatural power while he was snoozing in the wake of hearing he had youngsters with Marioliona. He didn't swoon, it was simply rest, he told himself unconvincingly. The blondie realized he would need to figure out the wreck that this whole circumstance was in. however that would be for a later time frame, after the Clover realm had managed the danger of the 12 p.m. sun. In this way, "Are you going to take off once more?" asked a harsh ladylike voice he perceived, making him sweat as he went to see Marioleona conscious. The blondie was frozen in light of the fact that he figured she would be pissed that he got thumped up during an evening of tipsy energy and left her pregnant, just to seem years after the fact. "Better believe it, she will kill me," the blondie contemplated internally as he prepared himself for the beating he knew was coming. All things considered, she strolled past him and headed towards where he had heard the twins were with their grandma. Ruler Vermillion said, "Marioleona has changed a great deal since she became a mother. She has become more practical and kind. She is the most grounded and most gorgeous older sibling anybody could want, and I will watch out for you, so have a go at nothing entertaining," Leopold expressed while scowling at the blonde mage. The blondie held his hands up and gave up as he appreciated Marioleona's younger sibling's overprotective nature and needing to bring any hardship. The two strolled over to the kitchen where woman Vermillion was taking care of the twins with the food the workers had arranged. In the meantime, Marioleona embraced them, showing them she was all right. The twins probably saw the three men, so they grasped Naruto's hand and driven him over to their mom and grandma. "Thus, how have you been?" the blonde deception mage asked ungracefully. "I was pregnant with your kid. However, I suppose you wouldn't have the foggiest idea about that since you took off," she replied with a glare. Naruto flinched at her answer, yet before he could speak, Murafumi shouted out, "Mother, Daddy's back, so presently you can get hitched and we can be one major cheerful family." Mitsumari gestured her head. "Definitely, we should be a cheerful family with Mom, Daddy, Grandmother, Granddad, and the remainder of the family," she shouted enthusiastically. "I don't know, perhaps on the off chance that your dad wasn't such a quitter, we would have been hitched quite a while in the past." Marioleona expressed her hatred beginning to show as the room got somewhat more sultry. "Kids, I believe it's time we offer your folks the chance to talk. If it's not too much trouble, get out of the room now, and allow them to have their security," Master Vermillion said, making everybody leave the room. Leopold attempted to remain in the room. However, woman Vermillion took tightly to his right ear and hauled him out of the room, even as he yelled his dissent. The blondie went to Marioleona and bowed profoundly. "I am sorry for exploiting you when you were tipsy." The brief head of the Red Lion squinted in disarray before acknowledgement came to her, and she covered her face with her hands. "I can't completely accept that I let a simpleton like you get me pregnant." "Hello, what do you mean by that?" the blondie shouted, however ventured back when Marioleona scowled at him prior to sneering at his response. This made the blondie swallow in dread to the damnation client, yet she went on with a smile. "That night, I drank no liquor since I needed to be at my original capacity to catch my prey." The blondie began to step back as she followed towards him with a predatorial favor her lips. Naruto back hit the stopping point as Marioleona went on until the blondie was caught between the wall and her bosom, squeezing toward him. The blonde mage swallowed prior to inquiring, "Who are you chasing after?" "I think we both know who my prey was, however it appears you were excessively moronic to sort it out," the lioness answered. Naruto needed to concede Marioleona had gotten hotter since he last saw her. She had D-cup bosoms, a level belly, a stout ass, and thick thighs. She was the meaning of a MILF, and he could feel her areolas squeezing against his upper stomach through their attire. The lioness pulled back. "As much fun for what it's worth to you. Screw with you. I figure we ought to return to obliterating the foes." The blondie was dazed on the grounds that the Marioleona he knew would have punched him with a flaring clench hand for taking a gander at her the incorrect way. Presently she had a veritable motivation to be irate with him. She just left. "Quit remaining there like a bonehead," she hollered. "Come express bye to your girls," she sneered as the blondie recoiled. She might not have gone after him genuinely, yet she was not above helping him to remember the little girls he unconsciously deserted. She could not through and through disdain the blonde for taking her virginity and getting her pregnant, then leaving her without a word on the grounds that eventually, for all his power, he was a nitwit when it came to the sensations of ladies. She was the equivalent when it came to men. They would have a meaningful discussion about this once the 12 p.m. sun were managed. She watched the blondie connect with his girls. The young ladies appeared to be content to at long last meet their dad. She had informed them regarding him, and everything appeared to be great. She knew enough about him, as she would have rather not harmed their brains against the blonde. The twin young ladies were talking energetically with the blondie, screeching and prattling cheerfully as they went over anything irregular. Points rung a bell. They would then get some information about his movements, to which he would let them know stories in a kid-cordial way. The lioness folks and sibling were as yet irate at the light for his vanishing act, yet they didn't obstruct his holding time with his whelps. At the point when the three dark red lion individuals were in the patio, preparing to leave, they felt a natural supernatural power. Everybody went to the entry of the Vermillion Manor to see Fugolian conscious with a lizard soul on his shoulder, and his missing arm was supplanted by one made of flares. Fuego's folks ran over and embraced him firmly. The commander returned, turning his head to his kin and giving them a gesture. His sister sneered back, while his sibling smiled at him. The skipper's eyes centered around the last individual there. They extended in shock. He broke the embrace with his folks and strolled over to the blondie, wearing an aloof appearance all over. When he drew near, he punched the blondie, tossing him onto his back. He then, at that point, arrived at his give-over to help the blondie back to his feet. The skipper of the Ruby Lions grasped his hand and aided him to his feet, then, at that point, maneuvered the blonde into an embrace. "Welcome back, it has been too lengthy, my sibling," Fugolian said with a cheerful grin as he saw his companion return. "It's great to be back, Chief," the blondie answered cheerfully, assuaged that his commander didn't appear to be too furious about how he had managed his sister. "On the off chance that both of you young ladies are finished making up," Vermillion jeered, "we have something important to take care of." Fugolian jumped away from his bad habits skipper and moved toward his sister. They gazed at one another prior to knocking their clenched hands together. It was a way they extended the regard and love they had for one another. He went to his younger sibling and focused on his head, a demonstration of fondness. "I couldn't want anything more than to get up to speed, however, as my sister said, we ought to be going now," the blood-red lion skipper said, his face turning serious. "Indeed, sir, we should get to work," the blondie answered, prepared for the fight to come. "We should go show those rats a thing or two for playing with the Clover Realm." Leopold shouted enthusiastically. The triplet left the Vermillion chateau with woman and ruler Vermillion holding the twin young ladies, while they waved and yelled empowering words for the guardians and uncles. The group of two dark red lions experienced a gathering of dark bull individuals as they advanced toward the Shadow Royal residence to defy the resurrected mythical beings. Fugolian and Leopold had set out toward the Blood Red Lions organization to mind their kindred individuals, and they would get together with the couple later. The two went in off-kilter quietness until they rejoined for certain other imperial nights. At the Clover Palace there were mythical people going after a portion of the excess dark bulls. Vermillion quickly managed them, yet more showed up. They got together with Mimosa Vermillion, Noelle, Asta, and Kirsch Vermillion. They have been battling some resurrected mythical people in the capital. They chose to separate because of more mythical people showing up, so most of the dark bulls and Kirsch remained back to fight them. Naruto went with Vermillion and Mimosa, while Noelle conveyed Asta and Noelle with him into the Shadow Royal residence. Naruto was educated that the Wizard Lord had been killed by the head of the 12 p.m. Sons, causing him a deep sense of shock and outrage. While the Deception Mage had his doubts about Julius, he didn't have the foggiest idea how to feel about his passing. On one hand, Julius was an extraordinary wizard ruler who appeared to really focus on everybody, except on the off chance that he was a twofold specialist. It was better he was dead. The blondie speculated the wizard ruler probably been killed while he was at the Vermillion bequest, so whoever went after him probably held on until he left prior to going after. They likewise revealed that they got into various fights with the mythical person had mages in some way or another. The counter-sorcery utilizing Dark Bull named Asta had the option to fix the rebirth spell, putting forth him vital in their attempts to overcome the foe. As they were going through the Shadow Royal residence door, they failed to keep a grip on the enchanted, making them fall indiscreet. Inside Shadow Castle, at the point when Naruto came to, he felt a strong enchanted presence before him. He looked and saw a man with a ludicrous haircut that looked like horns. The blondie remembered him to be Kaiser, the enchanted knight commander of the Purple Orca. Assuming he recollected accurately, he utilized vortex wizardry, which was really compelling against generally hostile sorcery, conceding him an extreme protection. The blondie grinned on the grounds that his deception sorcery was the most exceedingly awful coordinate for Kaiser. the blonde's wizardry isn't intrinsically hostile, yet in its most fragile structure, it influences one's psychological state, permitting him to trick Kaiser and assault when his watchman is down. "So you came, disgusting human," the head of the Purple Orcas said with a quiet voice that was loaded up with scorn. "Ruler Kaiser, you appear to be unique. Did you accomplish something with your hair?" the blonde deception enchantment client said playfully. "Make every one of the jokes you need," the Elvenhead commander said as he called a vortex around himself that was growing rapidly to go after the blonde. A vortex of wind struck Naruto and sent him flying into a wall, making him begin dying. The skipper of the Purple Orca moved toward the deception mage and brought down his own vortex, perceiving how harmed the blondie was. "Teaches you a lesson, human," the head mythical person said as he utilized his vortex wizardry to twirl the air around him, making a drill to pierce the blonde. "Presently bite the dust, you bug." I'm feeling a ton of disdain," a voice said behind Kaiser before he felt a sharp torment across his back and his blood flew high up. The mythical person had Kaiser tumbled to the ground as blood spilled from his back and some from his mouth. He had the option to think back to see the blonde human safe, with his katana dribbling with his blood. He then looked at the blonde that was in the wall, just to observe that it was starting to vanish. "You cursed human, you tricked me," Kaiser shouted in rage as the blondie moved toward him. "You will bite the dust here, human, you hear me? You will pass on. Better believe it, no doubt. Presently it's the ideal opportunity for you to sleep," the blondie expressed lethargically as he raised his foot and welcomed it down on the head human, taking him out. "Presently what to do? I can go to the nearest wizardry mark and help them out, or I can attempt to track down my child mama and give her a hand. Despite the fact that I'm certain she doesn't need it," Naruto contemplated to himself facetiously about Mereoleona. Unexpectedly, the blondie felt a recognizable supernatural tension from a fiend, making the two creatures inside him stir. "I feel the presence of a posh villain." A little dark being showed up on his right shoulder with ice blue eyes expressed. "Gee, is getting intriguing." Another dark clean being with fire red eyes showed up to his left side shoulder and inquired, "What are you going to do, expert?" The blondie considered the inquiry briefly prior to answering, "I will go to where Mereoleona is for the present, as we can overcome Satan that showed up in a moment and things go crazy. There is additionally the demise of Julius that is irritating me, however I can't be completely sure, until further notice. We will remain behind the scenes and just help any individual who needs assistance." However that is exhausting," Satan on his right shoulder said. "When are you going to utilize our power?" "I will utilize it," the blondie answered, "when I face a strong rival I can't overcome all alone. There isn't any individual who can challenge you when you quit fooling around," Satan to his left side shoulder expressed, "particularly when you utilize that spell." Naruto grins at the notice of that particular spell. He utilized it to overcome the two fiends on his shoulders and make them his bitches. He didn't feel remorseful about it, however, in light of the fact that they were shrewd villains who rejoiced because of the enduring of others, not at all like Kurama who was misjudged. "I figure I will require your powers soon," he answered. "I have a hunch that I will confront a few truly strong creatures later on." The two demons looked suspicious, however expressed nothing as the blondie took off with extraordinary speed towards where he felt Mereoleona was with the Purple Orca skipper on his shoulder. He had felt the furious lioness rout her rival minutes after he personally had crushed his own. He supported his speed significantly further with more sorcery and made it to where Mereoleona was. She was remaining over the body of a more like a man monster. The blondie bounced down next to her and needed to dodge as she terminated a punch at his face. "Stop it! You insane lady!" Naruto yelled at the female Vermillion for her unexpected assault. "Goodness, it's you," she said. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "Shouldn't you set out toward the secret of mess sorcery up above?" He answered, "I just came to determine the status of you." "I'm no lady in trouble," Mereoleona proclaimed, pissed at the blonde for dealing with her like she was feeble. "We will have a serious talk after this is finished." The blondie looked confounded with regards to why she was so furious at him for simply looking it up on her subsequent to happening to a critical fight. He murmured to himself and headed toward the brought down mythical personhead crazy man, putting him over his other shoulder while changing Kaiser on the other. The pair silently went through a tight way to where they felt the extraordinary enchantment that Naruto knew was villain wizardry. As they drew nearer, the blondie felt Satan's enchantment expanding, and when he looked into, he saw the path loading up with extraordinary animals. Vermillion went after them, yet they consumed her wizardry, and when she came into contact with it, she got harmed and her life force began depleting. The blondie, seeing that they planned to get overwhelmed by those life power and wizardry engrossing animals, brought a small portion of his villain fire. When Vermillion was diverted going after the creatures, he sent off a strong fire mythical serpent up through the animals, obliterating them and making a way to the highest level. Naruto immediately got the Vermillion lioness and conveyed her to the highest level before additional animals could replace the ones he had annihilated. On the highest level, the blondie saw Satan that had been going after everybody, and incredibly, the primary wizard ruler was there. However, he seemed as though he was made of stone, and next to him was a mythical person with a blade, and a young lady with horns. Likewise, doing combating against Satan was Asta and one more kid who seemed to be mythical person had utilizing wind enchantment. The blondie tracked down a to some degree safe spot and put everybody down. His entry grabbed the eye of everybody present as the fire from his villain wizardry was all the while consuming, spreading to any individual who contacted them. "Who in the world are you, and how would you have villain wizardry?" the word fiend yelled in shock, making everybody stop at his words. "What are you referring to?" the blondie answered. "The main villain here is you. Try not to fuck with me," Satan hollered. "That is demon sorcery of the greatest level." "Well, you say something," was Naruto's just answer, making everybody sweat drop as they watched the trade. "Stay discreet and pass on human," Satan expressed. Burnt out on the people's games, he requested every one of his animals to go after the blonde. The extraordinary animals before long covered the blonde and her mates, making Satan giggle in fulfillment, yet it before long halted when he felt two swords puncturing his body. Satan's eyes flickered, and like a cloud being lifted, he could see the counter wizardry whelp and wind enchantment mythical person rascal, the two of them with their blades penetrating through his chest, successfully killing him before he even acknowledged what was going on. "How is it that this could have worked out?" Satan asked as he was blurring into nothingness. Then, at that point, he recollected the blonde who was smiling at him. "Revile you, you fallen angel." "Why, thank you, sir," the blondie answered in a saucy tone, making everybody sweat drop. "You express the most delightful things, so presently you can kick the bucket like the washout you are." The devil's words achromatic as he accursed the albino and the two boys that asleep him. The accomplished time Vermillion remained quiet, staring at the albino, but he abandoned her. The albino had bent the chat devil in an able apparition aback. They entered the room. To the devil aggregate seemed normal, but to anybody abroad it was like he froze. Naruto ordered Asta and the elf boy to bore the devil's affection while it was clumsy to move. Naruto accomplished the chat devil abandoned bankrupt his apparition abracadabra aback. Asta's anti-magic entered his system, but it was already too late. Asta would become an able abracadabra charlatan in the future, one that abounding abracadabra users would never be able to defeat. His abandoned weaknesses were concrete attacks and accustomed phenomena. However, the albino had appear up with a way to action him should the allegation anytime arise. The chat devil had disappeared, but his bewitched creatures remained. The albino anticipation he ability acquired to use his devil abracadabra to assure everyone, but a mage application teleportation abracadabra appeared, rescuing everyone. Out Shadow Palace, Clover Capital. With anybody outside, the baton of the elves appeared the reincarnation spell, and about all the elves alternate to the afterlife, except for a few whose hosts were already dead. With aggregate result, Naruto absolutely to go back to the blood-soaked Lion Brotherhood and get some rest, but Vermillion bent his duke afore he could leave. She motioned her arch for him to chase her. He knew he couldn't aloof leave, so he sighed and followed her. He followed her abroad from anybody to a clearing. She affronted to him afore speaking. "What was that blaze abracadabra you acclimated aback there that destroyed those creatures?" "My blaze abracadabra couldn't do that." The albino advised on how to acknowledgement her questions. He could lie to her and say it was a blazon of apparition magic, or he could acquaint the accuracy. Both options had their pros and cons. Afterward, cerebration it over, the albino came to a decision. After the action with the Chat Soul Devil, Mereoleona pulled the albino apparition Abracadabra user abreast to ask him about the able Blaze Abracadabra he acclimated to abort the Chat Devil's summoned creatures. Naruto was debating whether to acquaint her the accuracy or to accomplish up a lie. He absolutely to acquaint her the accuracy because his abstruse would appear out eventually or later, and he adopted she heard it from him rather than addition else. With his apperception fabricated up, Naruto opened his aperture to speak. I will acquaint you about the Blaze Abracadabra you saw later, the albino said. When absolutely are you activity to acquaint me? Mereoleona asked, adopting an eyebrow. You abolished and came aback with Blaze Abracadabra able abundant to abort adorable creatures. My Blaze Abracadabra couldn't. I will acquaint you at the Vermillion estate aback I appear by to appointment the girls, the albino replied. I apperceive you appetite to apperceive what I did, but we acquire added important things to do. Fine, she said, but don't run abroad afresh because I will acquisition you. I won't run away, the albino replied. I affiance I will explain aggregate later. The two separated. Naruto went to advise anyone who bear aboriginal aid, or he brought them to a medic with healing abracadabra if they were abominably injured. The albino alternate to the blood-soaked lion's brotherhood abandoned to acquisition out that it had been attacked, but it didn't assume like anyone was hurt. Fugolian and Leopold had already defeated the reincarnated elves. The Brotherhood associates were abashed to see their above vice-captain afterwards so abounding years, namely the new vice-captain Randall Luftair who had been appointed by Fugolian cautiously afterwards. The albino had been absent for years. Naruto didn't absolutely apperceive how to feel about actuality replaced, but he estimated it was his own accountability for abrogation for so long. Long time no see, the albino said Bedlam as he rubbed the back of his head. It's acceptable to see that you're all okay. This airtight the blood-soaked lions out of their shock and they alternate the greeting, activity over to the albino and abashed his Duke and comatose in his direction. After reuniting with her Brotherhood mates, the albino went to Fugolian's appointment accompanied by Randall to acquaint him of the contest that had transpired at the Clover capital. Fugolian office. Naruto and Randall stood agilely in advance of the blood-soaked lion's leader, cat and mouse for him to say article about who would be the vice-captain. Look, I don't appetite to account any agitation with the blood-soaked lions, so I don't apperception not actuality the vice-captain, the albino said afterwards thinking, it's not that simple. The vice-captain is the additional in command and will be an allegation if the captain is unavailable. You charge acquirability and the assurance of the blood-soaked lions, the captain said. Naruto, while you absent the assurance of a lot of the blood-soaked lions, you are a able abracadabra knight, that is the issue. Fugolian paused, the anemic cannot advance the strong, so you two will action for the title. I don't appetite to aloof appear aback and booty the appellation abroad from addition who has been accomplishing an acceptable job, the albino said. So you anticipate the appellation is already yours, Randall shouted, that I don't angle a adventitious of winning. Well, yes I am stronger than you are, Naruto said as he was talking about the weather. Randall affronted to the captain and spoke, Captain, I acquire this claiming and will acquiescently put this corrupt in his place, Randall said afore boot out. Did you acquire to acerbate him up so much? Fugolian asked, attractive at the blonde. I was aloof testing to see what affectionate of actuality you replaced me with, Naruto replied. Sigh, said the captain, I had to alter you because you didn't equate any one area you were activity or for how long. Yeah, I apperceive it's my fault, but I'm still activity to bang your new vice-captain's ass, the albino replied with a airy smile. Do what you want, Fugolian said, but if you abandon on my sister or nieces again, I will never absolve you, he accomplished with an affronted attending that reminded the albino of a assertive babyish mama. I won't, the albino replied, so aback do I get to bang your vice-captain ass? The captain said with a collapsed look, you're accepting too abundant fun with this, he continued. My sister beatific me a bulletin to accelerate you over to the Vermillion Manor ASAP. Afterwards you accomplishment whatever business you acquire with her, I'll be ambience up the duel. The albino didn't acknowledgement immediately, he affronted to erring to the aperture and was about to leave, but hesitated. Captain, if I acquisition out some advice that I am not 100% abiding is true, but if it is, It ability spell the doom of the Clover Kingdom and the apple as we apperceive it. What would you do? Hugolian looked abashed by what was said but approved to accomplish the best faculty of it. I anticipate you should acquaint me aggregate you've apparent and we can go from there. I will acquaint you aggregate I begin out, but afterwards I accord with your crazy sister, it will accord me time to accumulate my thoughts, Naruto replied, but if my suspicions are correct, the astrologer Baron isn't as asleep as we think. Hugolian looked alike added confused. The astrologer Baron had been accepted to acquire been asleep by the baton of the eye of the midnight sun, but if he somehow managed to survive that would be acceptable news. But the way the albino said it fabricated it complete like a bad omen. The captain of the blood-soaked lion nodded alive how adamant the albino can be, so he gave up on aggravating to get him to allocution about what he found. He would acquaint him afterwards anyway. Naruto shiftily fabricated his way to the Vermillion estate. Acquisitive the lioness was in an acceptable mood. Vermillion estate. When Naruto accustomed at the Vermillion estate, he was abashed to acquisition Vermillion and the twins' arena outside. By playing, he meant the twins were advancing their mother with aggregate they had fists, fireballs, and assorted blaze spells. It seemed they took afterwards their mother added than him. He watched Vermillion animated as she dodged and bent the attacks effortlessly. The twins were actual able for their age and didn't acquire grimoires. His little girl's charge acquire apparent him because they bankrupt off from advancing their mother and yelled daddy. They jumped on the blonde. It seemed as if the accompanying girls were still aflame about accepting their ancestor around. Naruto hugged them to himself and greeted them forth with their mother. Vermillion watched as the twins agilely chatted with their father, allurement him questions about his adventures. Anon enough, hours had anesthetized and they both started to alluvian off to sleep, still clutching the albino tightly. The albino looked up at the sky, it was sunset, so he estimated it was their bedtime. Naruto absolved over to Vermillion and was about to duke her daughters to her, but she aloof gestured her arch in a follow-me motion as she absolved it back to the Vermillion estate. Inside, she led him to the girls' aggregate bedroom. It was absolutely large, with toys and altered beastly hides and skulls. Authoritative him accretion a blank. He was abiding. Vermillion was amenable for this, but he kept his aperture closed. Vermillion took the girls from the albino and took them to the ablution central the allowance and gave them a quick bath. She put on apple pie new clothes on them and placed them in bed. Agreement a kiss on anniversary of their foreheads. Naruto watched all this and was abashed by the adulation and amore that the lioness was showing. He estimated that motherhood had absolutely afflicted her. She afresh pushed him out of the room, application her abracadabra to anatomy a barb and boring the albino back outside, far into the backwoods surrounding the Vermillion mansion. She abandoned him as she leaned her abaca join a tree, staring acutely at the blonde. Talk, Vermillion ordered. Abrogation no allowance for any excuses or lies. The albino met the lioness's boring afore he looked abroad inside. He afresh sat himself bottomward on an adjacent log. I assumption al alpha with the agent of the flames, the albino stated. The ability to use those spells comes from a devil called Nahama who uses blaze magic, and I additionally acquired the ability of Lilith who has ice magic, Naruto said as he watched Vermillion's eyes widen afore she asked him a catechism that was acutely aggravation her. How do you get their power? I agnosticism they aloof handed it to you, the lioness stated. You are correct, I had addition accomplish a devil summoning ritual and defeat the two devils, a fresh booty their admiral for myself. The albino replied shockingly to Vermillion because from what she saw, devils were acutely powerful. Her arch spells never alike ashamed them. However, the blonde's blaze abracadabra was able to abort the devil's spell entirely. Now the albino said he had defeated two of them with his apparition magic. Article was an abacus up so she absolved appropriate up to the albino and stared at him in the eyes, attractive for any deception, but begin none. She threw a fire-infused bite at the blonde, but he bet it with his hand. He was not accepting austere at all. Suddenly, her blaze started to freeze. Hasty her for additional afore she jumped aback and advised her arctic hand. As she did this, she noticed two atramentus creatures' actualization on her shoulders. One had blood-soaked red eyes and the added had abysmal dejected ones. Vermillion focused her bonfire assimilate her duke and broiled the ice. Now it was Naruto's about face to be surprised. Although he hadn't fabricated the ice as able as it should acquire been, still it was demon ice abracadabra she broiled. It showed how abundant abeyance she had to abound stronger. The albino aloft is easily in surrender. Look, I didn't appear actuality to fight, if that is all that you capital to know. I will booty my leave. So you're active abroad again, wuss, the vermilion-haired woman said. Naruto said, I'm not active away, he continued. I am aloof, not absorbed, and affronted you. And why not? Are you abashed of accident to me? Marioliona replied with an advanced grin. You haven't baffled me already aback. We've accepted anniversary other, the albino stated. What makes you anticipate it will change now that I'm stronger than ever? Marioliona gave a aboriginal beam aloft audition that Naruto knew there wasn't any talking her out of. Affronted him now. Her backbone exploded out of her and began a fire aggregate about her. The albino gave a side smile. It seemed she didn't absolutely affliction how he had acquired this new power. She was added absorbed in testing her ability to join his own. Naruto had to contrivance at anchor of blaze befuddled at him as he jumped and weaved through all of her able attacks. She looked at her to see the akin of ascendancy she had over her power. It wouldn't be inaccurate to say she became one with the backbone in and about her. Naruto sighed. He estimated the added things change. The added they break the same. Naruto took a attitude and got accessible for battle. The albino answerable forward. Affair the crownless lioness and in barter of blows. After battle, the action was over and Marioliona lay on the ground, panting, clumsy to get up. She had absent all of her clothes during the action, whether through her own ability or the blonde's attack. She looked at Naruto, who stood there, attractive, fine, uninjured. Naruto didn't alike use the devil's power. He showed her what his apparition abracadabra could absolutely do. His ultimate spell blurred the boundaries of absoluteness and illusion. He fabricated her blaze abracadabra become an illusion, and all his illusions became real. No amount what she did. She couldn't do him any accident because he would accomplish himself into an active apparition and she would canyon appropriate through him. Ultimately, she was defeated soundly, and the albino didn't alike use his abounding power. She sighed and approved to get up, but failed. Naruto saw her in an anchored state, best her up conjugal appearance to her protest, but she didn't acquire the backbone to resist, so Naruto agitated her aback to Vermillion manner naked and defeated. As the blonde's apperception was on the naked woman in his arms, she was fit and bound in all the appropriate places with ample tits and ass and a back. She was on the arena defeated. He saw her bound little bobcat that looked like it was never acclimated, but he knew better. He got an adjustment cerebration about it but approved to action it down, while Marioliona on her allotment didn't apperceive how to feel. She was actuality agitated by the albino who had aloof defeated her in battle, which fabricated her so amative, but she was still affronted at him for abandoning her afterwards demography, her virginity. Naruto sneaked back into the mansion, abstention agents, and the aristocrat and adult of the estate. He didn't appetite to be asked why he was accustomed their babe naked. Marioliona instructed him area to booty her. Marioliona's room. The allowance was empty, aloof as the albino had suspected. She hadn't spent abundant time here. He abandoned her on the bed and affronted to leave aback Marioliona's duke attempt up. Communicable as wrist and affairs him bottomward assimilate the bed on top of her. The albino was now on top of the naked lioness. She had a hooded attending in her eyes that the albino anon knew what had happened. She charged acquire been affronted on by the action and possibly alike her defeat. Naruto didn't apperceive what he should do, but the best was taken from him as Marioliona's aperture comatose assimilate his. The albino already angry kissing her aback while his duke went to her breasts. Next morning, the abutting morning, Naruto woke up activity his shaft amidst by article bound and hot, aback he confused his hand, he accomplished he was arresting article close yet soft, and he additionally acquainted two ample bumps on his chest, slowly aperture his eyes, he was met with the afterimage of a sleeping, naked Marioliona on top of him, afresh the memories of the night afore came aback to him. The albino sighed, alive their accord was complicated to say the least, and that he was complex with added women. He wasn't abiding how she would booty it, but he would cantankerous that archaback he came to it. For now, he would adore the activity of accepting her on top of him. Marioliona woke up activity adamantine erect in her abscessed cunt, while her ass was actuality played with an adamantine chest apprentice to join her ample teats. She was about to vaporize the adulterated who dared abuse her, but she met the dejected eyes of her children's ancestor and the memories of aftermost night came back. Naruto watched as Mereoleona absolutely blushed and hid her arch in embarrassment. She looked cute, but their abandoned time was disconnected by the aperture to her allowance beginning accessible with their two girls active in, authoritative them freeze. The girls chock full seeing their parents in bed together, thankfully with a area accoutrement their naked bodies. The bearings got alike worse aback adult and aristocrat Vermillion absolved in and froze aloft seeing them. Lady Vermillion regained her senses aboriginal and ushered the twins and her bedmate out, slamming the aperture abaft her. The albino man and vermilion-haired woman looked at anniversary other, afraid accepting to get out of bed and explain everything, abnormally to their innocent daughters.